Welcome back, viewers. You are still tuned into Prime Live. I'm so excited to welcome Shafinaaz Hassim, who is a multi-award winning South African author and sociologist whose prolific work spans across numerous genres. Now, in 2007, she entered the literary scene with her groundbreaking work called Daughters and Diamonds. Honor, Shame and Seclusion, a South African Perspective. It was also followed by other critical works such as SoPhia and The Pink Oysters, which actually won international recognition and acclaim from esteemed organizations such as UNESCO. We are so privileged to welcome her to Prime Live this evening. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for joining us on Prime Live.
Wa alaikum salam, Nazia. Wonderful to be on your show.
It's such a privilege to be able to have a conversation with inspiring authors who are doing such incredible things and are really putting their mark on the world of literature. To start off this evening, could you please share with us some of your earliest influences and experiences that led you to become a writer?
I think, I've always loved reading. So I always say, as a writer, you're always a reader first. And thanks to my parents, it was always inculcated in me that, the power of story and the power of enjoying the written word. And I think in terms of writing, I always kept a diary. There was a time back in the 80s when I remember saying to a teacher that I wanted to write, and she said, "My girl, only people in London write books." And my dad gave me an empty diary and he said he wanted me to write something every day. And I think that's where my writing voice emerged. But I only started writing, I'm trained as a sociologist. You mentioned my first book, Daughters Are Diamonds. So that came out in 2007. It was based on my thesis. And I was really interrogating Muslim women in a cultural setting and understanding the pure egalitarian text of the Quran, because the media was always giving that kind of one-sided view. And I thought that we needed to present our story, and that was the beginning for me. All my other work fell off from there in terms of the short stories, the fiction that I've written, and that was really the impetus was to document our story way back when I began.
I really love that you've chosen to tackle topics that we don't often see in conversations, in media, and in publishing as well. I think these are such important narratives and such important stories to be able to tackle. So thank you for doing that. I think that's really, really incredible. Can you talk to us about what inspires you to continue creating thought-provoking works today? I mean, you are a multi-award winning author and of beautiful, successful novels, but what continues your passion to continue writing books?
I think it's, when you enjoy what you do and you know that you have an intention to put the word out there, there's an energy that flows, and it's a process that carries you instead of you carrying the process. I think as a writer, you're just one part of the process. You're just an instrument on the process. And some of these stories, writing them feels like quite a spiritual experience, because while you're writing them, you might hit a block. And then I dream of a way through the block. So when I wrote SoPhia, for example, SoPhia was telling the story of domestic violence. And as much as you can say, okay, these are themes we don't talk about, when the book came out in 2012, for certain, my earlier books, I think that were a bit of a burst of new ideas. And our community wasn't ready to speak about the social ills that we were dealing with. But I think that I'm pleased to say and to notice that we've opened up to the opportunity. There are so many young and generally Muslim authors that have emerged over the years. Certainly they were before as well, but there's a greater impetus to write, to tell our stories, to talk about our stories, and to have those important conversations about finding solutions that are particular to us, but solutions that we can share with communities and draw those bridges to say, look, our issues are not very different from your issues, and we can sit in a circle and actually talk about them. So this was SoPhia. Some readers might remember created quite a conversation around the concept of GBV in our community, where it's not necessarily relegated to codependency or alcoholism, for example. So it was quite a nuanced kind of way of dealing with the topic.
I mean, it is incredible that you were able to, with your own example and with you being an author, being able to pave the way for Muslim female authors in the space as well. So we owe a lot of that freedom and that creativity that women are now able to explore, talking about these, like you said, previously difficult topics to talk about, and creating spaces where there are other authors who are coming out and talking about their journeys and their stories as well. Because I always talk about how being an author is incredibly difficult because you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, your mind, your thoughts, your innermost feelings are shared on paper for the world to see. So thank you for paving the way for other authors as well. And throughout your career, you've also been able to craft a wide range of works that explore various themes and genres, as the two books you shared with us just now. Is there one that particularly stands out for you that is special and incredibly meaningful to you?
That's like asking a chocoholic what's their favorite chocolate, or mum to, to really say what's their favorite, who's their favorite child. But I think that if I really had to think about it, as a writer, you set goals for yourself and you test how far you've gone and how much you've challenged yourself to break certain boundaries. And I think with The Economics of Love and Happiness, my next sort of adult novel, that was really something that as a writer, I felt I had pushed the most boundaries and had brought out the most of what I was capable of. It's a book on human trafficking in South Africa. It deals with human trafficking, but it also deals with Islamophobia and racism within our communities. And why I wrote in novel form is because I find the novel is a lot more amenable. People are able to read a fiction story and relate to it better than if you were putting it out like Doris A. Diamonds was a nonfiction thesis, so to speak. So I think fiction just is an easier vehicle to create those conversations. The books that I had the most fun with, though, is my Nisa Kamar series for young adults. I've had huge fun with that. Really about developing a 10-year-old girl growing up in Joburg, going to an Islamic school, and the little everyday things that she experiences and the adventures that she follows through. We've all read the Harry Potters and the wonderful kind of material out there. But I think that, and I'm finding a readership that really wants to be able to identify and say, well, I went to that kind of a school and I took this off ramp in Joburg and we went for ice cream to this place. So writing our stories is very much about owning our spaces and reclaiming our spaces through the power of the written word.
And more so, I think for a Muslim audience, even a young Muslim audience, we want to be able to read about stories we can relate to, that we can see ourselves in these characters. When the characters grow throughout the book, it inspires the reader as well. And like you said, a lot of people enjoy things like Harry Potter, but you're creating such an incredible journey for Muslim people to be able to follow a journey that they can relate to. And like you said, growing up in a place like South Africa, you also have this unique opportunity to be able to travel through what it's like navigating the world through a South African Muslim perspective. So I love that you've incorporated these kinds of themes that can make readers feel like they're part of the story or they see themselves in some of the characters. What I also particularly love is that you also choose to talk about topics that are very, very relevant in South Africa. You choose to talk about the social ills in South Africa that I think is incredibly important, creating that much needed sense of awareness through your work as well. But I also want to talk about the Pink Oysters, and this was inspired by your experience as one of the Africa 39 authors. Could you tell us more about this recognition and how it has influenced your writing career?
So The Pink Oysters was a short story. I wrote a crime fiction story based in Joburg. And I wanted to also get the nuances and the senses, the smells and sounds of walking through Fordsburg, and the feel of attending a function at the Sandton Convention Center, and the kind of experience that happens between those very different spaces in the same city. And what I found through that was not only was I placing different characters through this experience, but there's a kind of a crime story, like a modern day Robin Hood story, really, because there's a syndicate that takes over buildings and then repositions people who don't have homes. And there's a diamond deal that happens, and that's that sort of thing. So this story won at the UNESCO Africa 39 Award in 2014. And Alhamdulillah, I was listed as one of the top 39 authors, the top 39 fiction writers on the continent. And it was a huge accolade at the time. It was great acknowledgement, but it also gave me encouragement to continue writing and to say that our stories are not just entertaining. Our local stories are actually quite formidable out in the world. There was presence, you had like journalists reviewing it out in Sydney, Australia, or the UK, and wanting to read more. And a lot of writing came back saying, well, this short story should be a full novel. I subsequently published it as a collection of writing, and that kind of had traction as well. And then, I was invited to Nairobi earlier this year to celebrate the 10 years of the UNESCO Africa 39. So a few of us got together at the Nairobi Book Fair and we discussed what it's been like in terms of writing. I've published 11 books since then, and Alhamdulillah, they've been well received both locally and in some other parts of the world where they've been read and received, especially through the African continent. And it really, really, I hope to inspire young writers to say that your story is important, the words that you put out there are important, and to have that feeling that don't let self-doubt stand in the way of what you can accomplish.
That was very beautifully and very powerfully said. And congratulations to you. To be able to talk to somebody who has been recognized on international platforms is such a privilege. And to be able to see Muslim women really paving the way for what is possible, like you said. And for paving the way for what Muslim women are capable of achieving is absolutely incredible. Your work being recognized internationally is such a huge achievement. And I also want to talk about your latest book called Darlings of Durban, which dives into the stories and struggles of 4 Muslim women that are navigating love, loss, as well as the complexities of modern life in South Africa. What inspired you to write about these characters and their experiences, and what do you hope that readers will take away from this work?
I think as much as we are, impressed upon by talking about social issues, as I've done before, with Darlings, I, on the first hand, wanted to write about Durban, so Darlings of Durban, because there's something very creative and special about being on the East Coast. And at the same time, I wanted to celebrate sisterhood. So Darlings is really a celebration of sisterhood with these 4 friends who come together, and they have a WhatsApp group called the Darlings. So because of COVID, a lot of us have had more so tried to rely on using our WhatsApp groups. And I think that when you have your sisterhood group, your friend group, aside from the family groups and the neighborhood watch groups, you can just kind of let your hair down and you can really relate to each other and hold space for each other. There's like an emotional holding space that happens in those conversations. And it's really interesting to see how they interact. But at the same time, you find very different relationships because 3 of them went to school together, the 2 cousins, Razia and Farhana, and their friend SoPhia. And each of their relationships is somewhat complicated, although SoPhia seems to have all her ducks in a row. Everything's, she's like the person who's the glue for her family and for her friends. She's always listening, always giving the good advice. We all know someone like that. Good health regimen, kids, husband, good relationship with the in-laws. So she epitomizes that kind of a relationship, which is, something we all aspire to. And then you've got Razia, who's a professional in a complicated kind of setting, and she doesn't really let on what goes on in her life. And Farhana, who's holding it together for her relationship, for her children, the nostalgia that comes through when they get together. But you've also got Natasha, who's very different from the others in that she grew up in exile. She's from a mixed parentage background. She somehow doesn't want to be married. She's, the one from the 4 who is a successful businesswoman. So she brings a very different flavor into the context. And I think that it provides for a very interesting take on how Durban is made up of all these different stories. Women have found this extremely relatable, but the big sort of comment for me as a writer is that our intimate narratives are also political. We don't have to write the politics of social issues, while there is a lot of social commentary in the book. We don't have to write particularly political matters in order to be taken seriously. Sometimes our intimate narratives are just what they are, the enjoyment and celebration of sisterhood, and an understanding of what makes us tick and what makes us who we are.
Absolutely. And these are the kind of stories that people relate to. I mean, just in our conversation, just in what you've shared now, I know there's a lot of female viewers out there who can relate to exactly the kind of relationship dynamics within each of the characters and their families, and particularly having that sisterhood WhatsApp group, that group, girls group chat that you can always lean on and go to whenever you need it. So these are, I love that you shared the concept that in order to be a successful writer, you don't always need to talk about social issues or politics to be successful or for your writing to appeal. You need to be able to also tell real stories that readers can relate to and learn from and grow from as well. But I believe that there is a new book in the works and that should be coming out very, very soon. Are we going to be lucky enough to get any sneak peeks or any kind of teasers from you on the new release?
So it's 2 weeks to launch. I'm very excited about this book. As you know, I wrote the Nisa Kammer series for young adults, and this is also written for young readers. It's called Kimya Writes and the Mystery of the Melting Trees. So the story behind it is that back in 2005, I started blogging, and my pen name at the time was Kimya because Kimya is the name of Jalaluddin Rumi's adopted daughter. So I wrote a blog, which eventually was published as a book in 2009 called Memoirs for Kimya. And I always considered that kind of my creative bent. So when I started writing the children's story a few months ago, I said to myself, well, it had to be a little Kimya because I want to encourage young writers to write through this story. So Kimya Writes is about a little girl going to school and she dreams of becoming a writer. So she carries a notebook everywhere and writes about what's happening in the school. And she stumbles upon a mystery, let's say, and she's got to obviously solve this mystery. So she keeps making notes about it. And eventually she does solve the mystery. So I'm really excited about this. And I hope to do some workshops encouraging young readers that if you can read the story, you can also write your own story. So inshallah, that's out in 2 weeks.
I mean, that's incredibly exciting. And what is even better about your new publication is that you are encouraging young people to write. I think in this digital world that we live in, a lot of our youngsters have kind of lost the art of writing. And I love that you're putting out a publication that's going to encourage them to do the same. I also, you know, respectfully, I really love the nod to Jalaluddin Rumi. I'm such a fan of his work and it speaks to me in so many different ways. So I really love the concept of the new publication. But I think the biggest question we're getting from our viewers is we've talked about various novels of yours that have danced across various genres and covered so many incredible topics and incredible dynamic characters. How do we keep in touch with you when it comes to getting copies of your latest publications or staying in touch on when they're going to come out or even obtaining copies of any of the books we've had an opportunity to talk about this evening?
Thank you for that question. So Darlings of Durban is the new publication. It's available at bookstores and online. Any of my previous works are available directly through me on Instagram or Facebook. Get in touch through my Instagram. And obviously the new book will be available through me and through various bookstores around the country. And watch out on the pages for upcoming launches. I'd love to engage with young readers and old. I find that older readers are also wanting to read the children's stories because I think there's a nostalgia about capturing the innocence of childhood the way I remember it from a non-tech world. So inshallah, there'll be more engagement on the works, and I look forward to hearing readers' comments, inshallah.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening, for enlightening us with your journey as an author. And thank you for your contribution to literature as well. As a Muslim woman, it is so inspiring to see women like yourself doing incredible things on an international platform and making a pathway for young writers to, of course, take a stance and take a position and take up space in the literature space as well. So thank you for joining us and for sharing your journey as well as some of your incredible novels with us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I wish you all the best.
To you as well. Viewers at home, that was Shafinaaz, an incredible Muslim author who has had many a success and has many books that dance over a variety of genres. So whatever your particular taste is, whether it comes to something that deals with social ills or something that is a bit more relatable, you can definitely find a book of hers that you'll be able to enjoy and relate to. And if you are interested in purchasing any of her books, or you would like any information on any of her upcoming publications, please do follow her on her social media platforms to get your copy. We do know that there is a publication coming out very, very soon with a very special message on encouraging young people to write. So do reach out to her to get your copy and stay in touch when it comes to her latest publications. But on that note, it is time for us to head over to an ad break, and we'll come right back.